Hello, everybody, and welcome to John and James Live. But today,
Welcome.
James, we're not quite live, are we? This is actually Friday the 28th, and we've had to pre-record it because James is away this weekend. So hopefully the world hasn't ended by
What?
the
Just
time
because
this
I've gone
goes out.
away?
Yeah, well, we are
I
going.
mean,
This is
I
a
guess
Monday.
the Earth will continue to spin on its axis just because I'm not going out live on Monday.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
Hopefully there's no
sure
disasters this weekend. Otherwise, this is going to look a little bit silly, isn't it?
it will. It
This
will.
one. But today we're going to talk about adversity because it's a bit of adversity week and overcoming challenges. We've got past the January, February months now. We're into March. We're sort of full swing into the year, aren't we, James? And
Spring has
you know,
sprung.
yeah. And I think I'm getting the vibe from a lot of people I'm talking to that it's quite hard out there. There's a lot of
Yeah.
businesses struggling. There's a lot of people struggling on a personal level. Globally, there's a lot of challenge. I know maybe I'm just focusing on the negative. Yeah, there's lots of positive, and we can always put a happy spin on things. But economically, we're going through a very strange time, and with the whole Trump thing coming in, and the Ukraine war, and things in the Middle East, and Israel, and artificial intelligence, I feel like we're at the cusp of something, James, and people are under pressure. It's challenging, and it's good for us to talk about the bigger issues, but for you, James, you're very good at the actual bringing it back down to practicality, aren't you? And we just need to do that, don't we, to get our own heads in the right space to overcome that adversity.
Yeah, it's challenging times for sure. Really, really is. I think there's so much. It's seems to have been a lot in a short space of time, isn't it? I think it all kind of
Yeah.
emanated. I mean, this situation in Ukraine has been going for a long time, but then Trump comes into the mix and then starts to exacerbate stuff and polarized, and the comments that he's made, etc., that just serves to fuel this situation that's going on. And you're going to get the left and you're going to get the right and you get the people in the middle, and yeah, it's trying to make sense of it all, mate. Really, I think it's survival.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, it's literally just trying to get through the day. And, they don't want to hear the positives necessarily. It's just like, what do I need to do today to make ends meet?
To get
What have
through,
I
yeah.
got to do to make that £10 stretch so that I can, feed myself, or, 20 quid for the day so that my family can eat? It's those kind of extremes. And you get people who are doing incredibly well that are just benefiting from what the economy is doing at the moment. There's always going to be people that have ridden the cusp of this wave, or the crest of the wave, I should say, that are going to do very well. And there's people like that, and there's the haves and the have-nots. But how do we make sense of it all? How to get into a situation where we can keep going? What can we do to bring some perspective and actually survive these troubling times? But there's always troubling times. You get these peaks and troughs. It's always there. It's always there, and it's how you ride it. It's how you ride it out.
100%. And for people who want to ask questions on this live, obviously this one is pre-recorded, but I am going to be moderating it. So if you do ask questions, obviously I can't answer them now because we've pre-recorded it, but I can answer you in the comment section. So yeah, do put your questions across. I'll answer them, and then we can cover them in a future live. But
yeah,
I totally agree with you. At all times in history, you'll look back, people would have lived through 2 world wars potentially if you was born in that unlucky period, wouldn't you? At the beginning of the 1900s, you could have been in a real sticky position. So yeah, things are changing. They're difficult, but you are right. There has always been challenge, and I guess it's about trying to adapt to that challenge. And we've got to look, in terms of systemically, we've got to look at the bigger picture, But you're right, James. I'm probably prone to looking too much at bigger picture, and you're good at bringing it back down to earth to actually, okay, John, I'm not going to revolutionize the world overnight. What can I do in the here and now to make my life better? I've still got to survive. I've still got to potentially create some type of business or value. I've still got to look after my own health. I've still got to look after my kids. I want to be connected to my family. How do I do that? But before we get to that point, James, I just wanted to, is there any personal stories of you overcoming adversity which you could share with the audience? Because normally those are the ones that maybe help connect with people when you show vulnerability. There's honesty. None of our lives are perfect. Everybody goes through challenges. So is there anything you can think of, like a time where you felt, man, the adversity's right there, and maybe how you sort of overcame it, or how you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, there's been several incidences in, with business around money. But I think the biggest one for me is that living pretty much my entire life from an early age, trying to live up to other people's expectations, trying to be perfect, because of my situation in my childhood, that it was like I felt that I had to create this persona for myself of being the sensible one, the stable one, that everybody else was kind of seemingly going off the rails. And I just had to be this kind of last sort of vestige of hope, and carried that right through my adult life up until pretty recently, when I couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't maintain this facade and the people pleasing and trying to be all things to everyone. And, it all just kind of caved in. And I guess the people would know me or have known me previously would go, I can't believe that you're going through this. Conversations I'd had, it's like, no, not you, James. I can't believe you'd struggle, because I'd perfected this image so completely that no one had any idea whatsoever that was going on underneath the surface. And it's only when I could not do it anymore, and everything was getting affected, friendships, my marriage, relationship with the kids and all that sort of thing, relationship with myself, that I just had to do something. And it got to the point where, it was pretty dark. There was some ideation there around suicide. And I guess for me, this is my personal experience, that you don't have a choice. You've got two choices, I guess. Either you do something about it, or you follow through on those ideations. And I decided to do something about it. So I think, everything else has been kind of incidental, and I'm not minimizing those kind of struggles with businesses and business relationships and all that sort of thing. But this was kind of life and death stuff, which puts it into perspective. So, but getting over that and having the love of my wife and my family and the friends that I have as well has enabled me to get over that. But it was touch and go there for a while. So yeah, that's probably the biggest one for me, to be honest.
I think we all, develop these masks, don't we, from our coping mechanisms from childhood. So we try to survive in the world, and we've all got our different nuances on how we do it. Some people go into themselves. Some people are more extroverted, and they hide in behind maybe comedy or being loud or pushing all of their efforts into being successful. There's so many stories, aren't there, of people that are driven by the pain of their past, but they can never escape it. No matter how much material success they have, it's always there, haunting them in the background, until you possibly do turn around and face it, pull down the mask with vulnerability, and actually think, okay, I need to sit with these feelings and sort of address them. You've called it before, James, with some of the work you're doing, working on your inner child, you would say. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for the majority of people, there's this kind of incongruity between the child and the man, or the adult, the woman. And all the time that child is there, you know, that hasn't been shown the compassion and the love that it should have been shown at the time when whatever the incident was that happened, then there's always going to be this kind of battle of the self. And I think it's that gap in between the two elements of yourself that, you know, create the problems, because you'll feel like a child inside an adult's body, and you'll feel like you should be more effective, you should be more together as a person. But it's that inner child that's there just trying to vie for your attention, and it's been unresolved. But back to you then, mate. So same question for you. What's been the biggest challenge, I think, that you've experienced?
Where do we start, James? Have you got your little violin?
I've got the tiniest violin in the world right here. Just about.
we need some music, don't we? Some.
Like radio, was it Radio 4?
Yeah, the Radio 4 music. I think there's probably three incidents I would say that have been very challenging. I would say there was in my close family, there was, you know, a sexual abuse of a child in the family by another extended family member. And when I brought that up in the family, it pretty much ripped the family apart. You know, I wasn't believed at that time, but 10 years later, you know, something happened again, and I was proved, you know, I didn't want to be proved right, but it was proved right. So, you know, that pretty much disconnected me from, you know, my real close family. So that tore the family apart. So going through that was, yeah, that was tough. That was really tough, I would say. So I guess sexual abuse is something we'll probably talk about in the future, especially child sexual abuse. But a lot of people have experienced it. When I've been honest about certain things in that realm, people have come out and said, yeah, you know, I haven't told anybody, but that's something that I've experienced as well. So we'll touch on that in the future. Secondly, I would say I had sciatica, which was anybody who's had that before. I had that for around 18 months when I was a personal trainer. So I was overtraining, and 2 of the discs, L4, L5, went in my lower back. And, you know, people, the physios and the chiropractors thought, you know, this guy's fit, healthy, can't be that. They thought it was like piriformis syndrome, like a tightness in the glutes. But when I had the MRI, it was actually protruding discs hitting my nerve in the back. So I had to
That's young. That's young to be having that.
I was, late 20s in that. But again, that's what happens when you're overtraining, you know, imbalances in the body, doing very heavy squats and pumping the iron, as they say. You can create a lot of problems. So, you know, once you're compromised with your health, you are in trouble, James, aren't you?
Yeah.
In that realm. So that was a second thing. Third thing is divorce. So after, you know, a 12-year relationship, I had 2 kids, 1 stepdaughter, 1 daughter of my own. I ended up getting divorced, and yeah, that was horrific, to be honest. So then, you know, you don't get to see your children as much. You know, you wake up with them every single day. You know, they're the apple of your eye. You know, you would do anything, die for your family, and then all of a sudden the script is flipped upside down, and now you're seeing your kids every 2 weeks, you know, twice a month. So going from 0 to that, it's very difficult for men in particular, because they're normally the ones who are, you know, not the primary caregivers in that circumstance. But when it happens psychologically, it's a brutal thing to overcome. So I'd say those.
So how did you overcome it? How did you overcome all 3? What kept you going?
For me, James, I would always been into personal development, and I went real deep on personal development in terms of how to how to sort of observe yourself from, like, you're looking at yourself on a stage, so separating yourself from those feelings. I spent a crazy amount of time by myself, sitting in a flat by myself. I could probably go 3 to 4 weeks without even seeing another human. That type of isolation. So once you sit with yourself for a long period of time, you soon realize who you are, and you have to exercise a few demons and actually be able to regulate your emotional state on quite a high level, because you're out of control. In reality, there's not, you can't control a lot of those things, and the only thing you can have a choice over is what you can do next. So sometimes when you hit the bottom like that, sometimes there's a lot of liberation in a very strange way. You think, how I'm here, how it can't get anywhere. Sometimes it's the fear of impending pain is worse than the actual pain itself, which sounds strange, but the anxiety comes from that thing that's approaching, isn't it? I can't deal with this.
We can always build it up to massively worse than it actually is. And then when it's actually happening, I mean, you're in it, you've got to deal with it. But that's the ruminating mind is incredible, that you can just make it so much worse than it actually is. And, a lot of anxiety comes from those sort of projecting forward into the future, where you're creating this image or this scenario in your head that just you can't, because it hasn't happened. It's not a tangible thing. Your brain can go to anywhere with that, and curate the most horrendous situation for yourself, and
that's the irony.
Feel the emotion, can't you?
Because the irony is, once you're there, you're driven into the present. So it's no longer the future projection. It is a little bit, because you've got a lot of grief. You've got, when you split up in a fight, you've got that grief of what could have been, and you go through those stages of grief, but you are very much surviving. Sometimes it was hour by hour. You're sort of just saying, just get through the next hour. Don't think about it.
Was it a slow kind of transition? Did you kind of, all that time you spent on your own, and then you started to maybe go out and contact people? I'm guessing that people were contacting you. They were concerned for you, and were you replying to them, or were you kind of?
I was in pretty much. I was in a city pretty much by myself, so I only speak to my brother, who's like 3-4 hours away, and then I've got obviously close friends in London. So then I would drive up to London, spend a couple of days with my friends, and then back to the city I was in Milton Keynes. But I still had to work, so I just sort of threw myself into that work situation. There was a lot of financial instability that I had to organize and sort out, so I didn't have any time really to dwell. There wasn't a place where I could go to a mum and dad's house and survive. Pretty much, I had really amazing clients from personal training that became like my surrogate parents.
Wow.
So much love to them, to be honest. They really helped me out. They even moved in with a couple of clients for about 6-7 weeks. So
incredible, isn't it?
I was so grateful. I still am. I'm just super grateful to Alan Johnson and Jumar Johnson at the time took me in, and D Smith, Paul Smith were just incredible. So I relied on my actual clients at that point, which was just because I haven't got the family.
I completely get it. I've had very similar experiences. I mean, I've got a couple, Alistair and Carol, that are like my parents. I mean, they take Ness and I out for dinner, and I go around there. I still train them now. They're just down the road, and it's like going and seeing your parents. It's just so lovely. It's incredible. It really is.
Yeah. I mean, like you said,
So
you and I have both got quite fractured, childhoods in terms of. I haven't seen my dad since I was 4 or 5. I don't speak to my mother either, so it's a very fractured unit. And really, there's family-wise, there's only my brother that I'm in contact with, but he's like 3-4 hours away. So there isn't much fallback. So I've got really close friends in London, and friends have become like my family really. And the clients then, I can't say how grateful I am for them. It was just a godsend that they did sort of help me out really at that point.
It's an incredible relationship, isn't it, that you have with your clients? I think anybody who's done PT or anything along those kind of lines, you're spending a lot of time with these people.
A lot of time,
week in, week out, sometimes 3 times a week, sometimes 4 times a week, and you're talking. It's not just about the training. For me, it was about the, stimulating the mind as well as the body with respect to exercise, that you are enabling them to talk. And it's such a multifaceted thing, this working out, because it's emotional. And people are being vulnerable,
very emotional,
and putting their self in your hands, and there's huge amounts of trust. And when you're talking on a regular basis, they will get to know you, they'll get to trust you, and then they'll get to tell you stuff. And I didn't make a thing about it, but I had a great memory for the things I'd know when their kids' birthdays were the sort of previous week, and I'd say, how did that go? And just little stuff, because I listened, and I do listen. And it was like a superpower, but it was just, your ability to be able to go to them. They go, oh, I can't believe you remembered that.
Yeah, I had beautiful relationships with my clients. So it was there, through them giving birth, doing marathons. One client, sent me on holiday to Singapore, all inclusive. So the clients that I had back then as a personal trainer were just you can build some amazing relationships just on those. And that's when you have that exchange of value, don't you? That's really what it's all about. But so James, we'll carry on this conversation, won't we? Yeah,
we will. We'll bring this to an end.
It will be interesting to hear everybody's views on their challenges and adversity, because it gives us topics to talk about, doesn't it, on future live. So if you're in the comment section and you're listening and anything's resonated with you, put your questions or just share your experiences, and then we can pick them up and talk about those in a future live.
Yeah. And Wednesday, just to mention before we do close, Wednesday we've got Johan and Charles. So Johan is a documentary filmmaker and Charles is an inventor and Arctic explorer.
Yeah.
And we have them on the show on Wednesday, and I'm very, very excited. So if you want to know about adversity and overcoming it, they're your boys, for sure.
Then we've got Carolyn and Emma on Thursday. I think we're going to do Thursday this time. So it's normally Friday, but this one's going to go out on a Thursday. So definitely check that one out. That will be an incredible. That'll be an incredible episode. So I'll send all the links out for you guys. Okay. Perfect. Okay, James. I'll see you in a bit, man. Guys. You take care. Bye-bye.
Bless you. Much love.